Baobab Chats is back. Season 2, Episode 1 starts today. Thank you so much for all the support during the Season 1. Thank you so much for all of you that have been with us, that have gone through the journey with us. We had to take a break so that we could revive, re-energize, re-look at a number of things, and we've come back, with new programs, with new things that are coming, and it's great to have you today. But today we have a very hot topic that we can't waste time, going through the formalities, managing money. Money. How do you manage money? A lot of us have made mistakes, especially when we start working or when we start making some form of income. And in that process, we found ourselves making financial decisions that we had to pay repercussions for many years to come. Some of them we're still dealing with the consequences of them today, and some of them we have managed to go through them. So we are talking about how do we manage money? How do we make sure that we are in control of money that we have, and that the money is not in control of us? And today I'm joined by a powerful team and a powerful panel. We have with us, all the way from Port Elizabeth, Gabriel. We have got Lloyd in Calgary, Alberta, in Canada. We've got Abigail in Joburg, Paul and Numisa both in Port Elizabeth. Welcome, guys. And to kickstart the conversation, we'll start with Lloyd. You can introduce yourself, but also just talk to us, Lloyd. Financial literacy, managing money. What exactly is financial literacy? Why is this important, and why are we discussing this?
All right. Thank you, guys. Thank you for having me here. Name is Lloyd, based in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. This is a really good topic because, as you've just introduced, many of us have fallen into these pitfalls of managing money. I like it because it's already in the word, managing money, right? So financial literacy, to me, I define it as a habit, a skill that's attained and sharpened over time. And I think it is something that is imperative for everybody to have. I actually would argue and say that it should be a skill that should start pre-teen, not in the teens. Pre-teen, like when someone is 8, they should actually start managing money until all the way they're grown up. So I think it's a very important topic, and it's a very important skill that everybody in life ought to have. And it's a habit, it's character, it's a culture. That's how I would define financial literacy.
Great stuff. Numisa, what's your understanding managing money?
Sure. I like what Lloyd mentioned about it starting in the teens. And I find myself and also the community in which I grew up as a Black child, that's something that our parents never talked to us about money and managing money. And what happens when you first start working? We even look at, if you look at things like a retirement annuity, I didn't know what that was until my first day on the job, when I was given a few pages to select things. And I didn't know what I was selecting. I was just going with what my friends, people I have just met, were selecting. So things like that. I find that we need to start the conversation as early as possible.
Yeah, that's very true, Ncumisa. I think I would just come in there. I think that's one big problem that we have faced is, I think, Black Africans. I think it's something that has not been taught much in schools or universities. Just what is money? How do you deal with it? Look, you start working, you sign a contract, you say you're going to get 5,000 rands, but are you really going to get 5,000 rands? There is tax. No one tells you about tax. Then on the 25th you're paid, it's less than what you thought. What do? You cry. You say, no, where's my other money? Because you don't know what right? Then the next thing, which apartment do you start? What is rent? You don't know about that. You don't know about a bond. No one tells you about those things. You continue paying rent, but maybe there's a bond that you could afford. So I think managing money is basically something that is lacking, but should actually be introduced as time goes on. I think from what Lloyd has said, at a very young age, When you now, like for instance, I've got kids that are starting up. From that early age, I remember in Zim we used to have something called kiddie bank, where your mom would open a check account for you as a kid, but then she deposits money, but she doesn't tell you what she's doing. But that is one thing that I now need to train my kids to say, okay, let's go to the bank together. We are putting this into your account. When you do this, then you get this amount. You can now, when you go shopping, use your own money. Then as she grows, or she now understands, this is my money. I've got X amount. If I finish it, then I don't have anything. So I think from my understanding, that's basically where we should start from, as early as possible.
Yeah, thank you. And go ahead, Abigail.
I just wanted to also just add on to what Gabriel said, that we need to learn this, if it can be introduced to everyone, actually, even people that are not degreed, if we could all have some sort of something that can be compulsory for everyone to learn this, because everyone experiences money management problems. And I would say it even reflects even after you die. Some people, you can see debt collectors, you see their debts coming to haunt them after they've died. Like if they have not paid some other things, the money that you'd be thinking is going to be paid out from, let's say, insurance, life insurance policies, it would be deducted because they have to take their money before it has to be paid to the family. So it's something that will even leave the family. You would think, oh, my family is going to get R1 million, but then you've got a debt of 800. They won't get the amount that you thought they would get. So it even haunts you until you're in your grave.
Yeah, so to just add on to that, how many of us have, when we were kids, have gone into our parents' wallet, opened it, saw money in there, but they tell you that they have no money? It used to blow my mind, like, it's there, but you're telling me there's no money, right? So this is a really important skill for you to learn, right? Because it didn't occur to me until when I started earning my own money after, of course, having a few mistakes, for me to say, even though I have money, I don't have money. You know what I mean? All right. So it is a really good, important skill for us to learn, because we've gone through that. You're told there's no money, but you can see it. So what's up with that? Right?
Yeah.
So it's a skill that we need to
So, yeah, Paul, you wanted to jump in?
No, yeah, it's really funny because from where I'm going to start, I saw someone who was tagged on Facebook, and they were saying that I think I'm ready to move out of my parents' house. So can anyone hook me up with an apartment for 50 rand? So, from where we're starting already, we are almost clueless. And there comes in also the issue of having money without having money, which basically comes with having kids. I think that's how you explain yourself when you really on a tight budget. But over and above, from where I'm coming from as an end-line consumer, I felt like managing money means buying something cheaper, having some extra sense after you do your necessary transactions. But I think it goes way deeper and better than that, into how you manage credit. The world is moving towards first-class economies, and credit lines are being extended. And I think part of managing money that we need to really have a conversation on today, as I see there are very equipped people here to talk about this, is extending credit lines and how to manage credit. And also maybe just lastly, as a person who really hated accounting and maths classes, when it comes to bigger figures, you start thinking, okay, I need someone to be able to do this for me. Is there a point in your life where, as a person, as a household, you need to have someone managing your finances just as a household?
I think
That's pegged, guys, and there's a lot of dynamics here. And what we would want to do, we want to break it down. So in terms of what the government should do at schools, at what, it's good. But most of us, we are not yet at a policy level to affect policy. So we want to bring it home. Now to say, how do we deal with this at home? You can see, for example, I saw one of the comments there saying, how do you say, by saying, how do you say I don't have money when it's there in your wallet? And it's about the language as well, because that's how our parents used to say, I don't have money. What does that mean? And how do we go ahead with that? So now, and there's another interesting point what someone mentioned about when people die, they left policies. It's actually interesting to find out how much estates do not get claimed, where people have all these policies and they do not tell their families, they die, and these estates actually just go to the government. It's also part of all this whole discussion of saying, if you're going to create a policy that you say it's for their family, it's for the children when they remain behind, you need to let them know that there's a policy that is out there, and give them the documents to know that, so that they can go and claim it. Although from different backgrounds we come from, people are scared of now being killed by the family and all those. There's a lot of dynamics that comes in this. So, but let's now start. Let's come to you, Nzumisa, and where you can start this round and you can introduce yourself as well. Now, what is it? I know you own businesses and stuff. So, what is it that you say yourself? I want to advise people to do this when you start working. Let's talk about starting to work, and also when you go through that, if you can take us into confidence, if there's anything that you do, even within your companies where company where you know that someone is a graduate or someone is the first time that they're working, do you just tell them that sign up to this provident fund? This is the fund that we have, or you explain to them, you help them with making the decisions. We can start with you on this round.
Okay, thanks for that, Stan. It's quite difficult questions that you pose there, but I'll answer based on my own experience. I think even after graduation, one of the things that I tend to say our parents, because I don't want to blame the education system that much. Immediately after graduation, I qualified for a platinum bank account, which I did not need as a 21-year-old. I had no business being there. The bank charges alone on that account used to shock me each month. Looking at the type of credit facilities that were then made available to me, it was your clothing accounts, it was your credit cards, it was even a bond that was made available. But all of those things, I mean, a bond, I think I fully understood what a bond was maybe when I was 23, 24, because of lack of someone explaining it to me. I learned what it was at school, but I learned it in English. I'm Xhosa speaking, but there was no one who broke it down for me to fully understand what it was. And I found myself in a place where I had credit everywhere because credit just came on a silver plate. And one of the things that people need to remember is just because you qualify for something doesn't mean that you should take it, because these institutions are looking at you in isolation. They don't maybe have a full idea of what your current debt and income situation looks like. And remember, as a Black child, sometimes that income situation, there's also an expectation from back home, being Black tax. They also don't know, or they don't filter that in to your affordability, etc. So for myself, I made it a point that, especially in my business that I run, all my employees, I make it a point that if I am going to introduce something, that I bring that individual from whichever, I don't want to mention the financial institutions, but whichever financial institution that they represent, they must come in, speak to the staff, tell them about the benefits, why they should be taking this policy on. And sometimes there's even tax incentives or a tax benefit that is attached to whatever policy that they do take. So I make sure that that education that I did not receive, that I give to them, because I don't want them falling into the same traps that I did. I remember there was a time between my mid 20s into my late 20s where I was suffocating with debt, personal debt. And I got to a point where I needed to tell myself, okay, no more debt. We are just now working to close off the different accounts. And I can definitely say that today I don't operate from debt at all. If I can't afford it, I just stick without it. I'm not saying that people must now not make use of lines of credit, because it does benefit you. I mean, even with a credit card, you get credit cards that are 6 months, no interest, if you can pay it off in time. So, I mean, that is something that is quite flexible. And if you know you are able to pay it off, then it will work for you.
And whilst you are there, because this is where, the issue of managing debt. Lloyd, can you come in there? How do you use debt positively? Maybe let's deal with it now. How do we use debt positively?
Wow, it's kind of a complex topic. So what I do professionally is I talk to people about finances. That's what I do positively every day. So I just want to comment on the last speaker, what they were saying. They mentioned one word that I loved there: need. Do you have need for something? All right. So you have to balance between a need and want. Right. So now when we're looking at debt, from my perspective, right, I'm based in Alberta, Canada. Our economy is in the first world. They literally run by what we call credit score, right? Credit score essentially is defined as the ability to borrow and the ability to pay back, right? So I've seen some of our brothers and sisters that say, you know what, I'm not even going to borrow any money. I'm not even going to use that credit card. But in the long run, in the long run of all things, that's actually hurting you, right? Because in our world now, as you said, that we're progressing to a dead kind of world that's controlled. Long time ago, we used to do police checks, right? Now we don't do police checks; we do credit checks, right? Before you buy a car, they do a credit check. Before you buy a house, they do a credit check. Before you even get a really, really good job, they do a credit check. Because police clearance, it just means, yeah, you don't commit crime or you have 1, 2, 3, 4 tickets. But how are you as a person disciplined, right? So that's a credit check. They're going to look at that. So again, it means that the thing called debt has to be controlled somewhere, right? So you having a good credit score, you having good credit does not necessarily mean that you are in debt, right? So you just have to find that balance of you borrowing that money, using that credit card, let me say, and then as Nubis said, paid back on time. That's all there is. Because if I borrow something today, pay back on time, that's all there is, right? The trick is borrowing and pay back on time. But now you have to find your own comfortable level to see how disciplined are you when it comes to debt, right? That's how I can simplify it for now as we progress.
Yeah, I think that's very, very true, Lloyd, where you say discipline. Because I think discipline is the one thing that we always lack. As I think, especially when we are starting working, like what Melissa said, you are given all these debt instruments. You are given you can get a credit card, you can get a car, you can get all of those things. But do you have the discipline to be able to pay those in a certain amount of time? And do you have the discipline to say, no, I don't need this at this moment, I'm fine, and I can afford to pay this on cash? Like, for instance, I can open a clothing account, but I know that this thing that I'm buying is costing me 100 rand. Why don't I just go and buy it for 100 rand rather than paying debt for 100 rand for 6 months and paying it over as 150, which is 50 rand more that I could have used for something else. But also on the other thing that you were mentioning, Lloyd, the credit score. So I think it's also something that we used to take for granted also back here in South Africa, saying, no, I don't need to take anything on debt. But it will actually, as time goes on, as you mentioned, because there will be a point of time that you want to buy a house. They'll say, you don't have a credit score, wait 6 months until you get your credit score. So it's always good to have to just buy something and finish it off, or just get that small credit card and be able to maintain a very good balance on it, pay it off in time, and you'll be able to also check your credit score each and every month. So there are various platforms where you can log in, check your own credit score, then make sure that you are very good. So before even approaching the bank, you already know where you stand with the credit score. And then in terms of good debt, from my experience, what I have used debt for, I think one thing that I did is I bought a car which I put on Uber. so I bought this car through the bank. Then I think I was paying like 3,500 for the car, but every month I was getting 10,000 rand for renting it out. So after paying the car and the insurance, I'm left with 5,000 rand. So I think I always tell Stan and other guys that car is the one that helped me to look after my firstborn. So I think everything that I needed for the baby was I was getting money every week from the Uber. So that is how I used I used that debt from the bank. And I think I always like this term that I heard some people saying. They call it OPM, which is other people's money. So OPM meaning other people's money, which is the bank's money. Like for instance, when you want to buy a property, you go and buy a property, you rent it out. So you are not using anything out of it. You buy a property for 600,000 rand, 600,000 rands. You over 20 years, you pay at this moment, you probably pay like 3,000, 4,000 rand a month, but you are renting it out for let's say 7,000. So it's something that will, if you just have a good tenant who stays there, you are not going to be out of pocket. So the bank is given you, but someone else is actually paying for that bond. In 20 years, the property is yours. Yeah.
So looking at this, maybe Abigail, you can jump in there as well. This is where maybe the question that Paul was asking earlier becomes crucial, because Paul was asking the question of saying, because if I hear all this, you can use that well, you can use it wrongly and all, but I'm so scared to do this, right? I don't know how to do it. Paul asked a question earlier of saying, is there a point that we must say that you need to get someone even to run your household finances? Are there people who do this and because I think this is where that also becomes in. Abigail, you can start or someone else can jump in.
Okay. Personally, I'm also going to answer from my own point of view. Personally, I would say financial literacy should be something that we all teach ourselves. I would advise against, okay, if you are really running a business or some small business that you see that it's filtering in some sort of money that you can spend on getting financial advice, I would say, because you need to really not make mistakes. But making mistakes with your own finances can teach you a lot of things as well. So I would say try and teach yourself how to manage your money, because I wanted to filter in that pillar, that budgeting. You need to actually get to know what you're getting. You're the best person to know what you're getting as income and your expenses. And when you get to know what you're getting and what you're spending, like the needs, not the wants.
I'm not sure if it's Abigail's network or it's mine. I think we are losing you. But does everyone agree? Because I don't think I fully agree with Abigail on making mistakes being a good teacher for you, because some of the mistakes that we can make are very costly. You have a credit card, it gets run over, or you buy a house. You know what the term house poor, where you get a very expensive house that you can't just dispose of, but at the same time you can't. After you pay that house from the bond or the mortgage, you are left with nothing. Or you buy a car that you cannot dispose anytime soon. So that's a very expensive mistake that will take you the next 5 years to try and fix. But you guys are in this financial sector. Are you all guys agreeing with this sentiment?
I agree with it 100%. I think one of the fundamentals that we need to look at before we start looking at debt, right, is building your own financial literacy. Because for you to handle, I think getting debt is the second level. The first level ought to be discipline, right? Whenever I talk to people when it comes to finance, I always equate finance literacy, i.e. savings, knowing what's coming in and knowing what's going in, as smoking, right? When you start smoking, it's fun. It's fun. It's fun. It's fun. At one point, when you try to quit smoking, you can't. Right? You can't quit smoking. It's really, really hard. So financial literacy, it's a habit like smoking, right? So before you even get to the point of you borrowing something, you yourself, are you able to save, right? By saving, I'm not meaning that you earn $100 and you have to save $25. No, that's not what I mean. I mean, if you have $100, are you able to save $1, right? So if over time you're able to save $100 from, $1 from each $100 that you earn, that becomes a habit. When it becomes a habit, it becomes addictive. Once it becomes addictive, it's something that you cannot stop doing, right? Someone who can save, I know there's a certain story that there's a certain phrase that says that, one who is faithful with the little is faithful with the more, right? If you cannot save on $100, $1, trust me, when you get $1 million, you won't be able to save even $1,000, right? Because it's a habit. People don't change their habits. They say pregnancy, it's like character. You cannot hide it. We've had people that have won $50 million, but they blew through it because pregnancy is like character. Your character is, you don't have that saving ability. You don't have that knowledge in you. So before you even jump to say, how do we manage debt? I think debt is the second stage. The first stage is you yourself. Do you have a saving habit? Can you save? If I give you $100 right now, it's like, when we were kids, our parents would give us, candy, would give us sweets. Sometimes they want to see, can you give back? They'll say, can I have some? And then you'll be like, no, but it's the person that's giving you. So something, can you save? So before you even graduate to debt, first thing is, I just got a job. I'm getting $100. Can I put 25 cents aside? Because $100 is so little. My budget is maybe $99 of everything, but can I put 10 cents aside? Because you're building that habit.
Can I just say something quickly, Stan?
Yes, go ahead.
If we take this back to the streets and if we take this back to the hood, out of the office, you will find that people save in collateral. People go and buy gadgets that they don't need because they know at one point they might need to liquidate. And there's this other thing about, that Gabriel mentioned about, I used to have that idea that if I buy something cheaper, I'm saving money. And then I later learned that sometimes in a space of 5 years, I have to buy the same thing 3 times because I bought it cheaper. Yet I bought an expensive one that is of good grade and quality. In that 5 years, I would have bought once. So there's also the issue of time value of money that we also need to put into consideration when we are talking about buying on credit versus buying cash. And then lastly, money is a foreign concept to most of us. Stan, when we started the show, you mentioned that sometimes we start getting involved hands-on with finances when we get our first job. And yet, I think now that we don't want to blame our parents and people who are behind us, I think with our kids and the generation that is ahead of us, we have to give these guys some sort of responsibilities of handling their school fees, probably taking the money to the bank and paying your own school fees and realizing that I took something out of the common or communal purse, and introducing money as a concept at a young age, and not just saving it, because when you think of saving, then that's restriction. Even the spending of it, take your kids out, take your family out, take the next generation out, show them why you are buying what you're buying and why you're living out what you're living out.
Yeah, go ahead, Lloyd.
Someone, maybe I want to ask the panel, right? My fellow colleagues, how do you handle when someone says that, I've earned my money, I should enjoy it. Why should I save? Like you said, the ordinary man in the street. Maybe for us, because we're in the profession, we understand this concept. But the ordinary man in the street, I've made money. Why should I save it? Guys, what do you think? Like, I've got my $100. What should I do with it? Squander it?
Okay, so I think there is a point. I don't really want to put that rubbish shit off to say some people would really have earned their. So if you have gone through the phase of you have saved your money, someone once said to me, if you have like maybe your salary, your monthly salary, you have like an amount that is 6 times your monthly salary aside for rainy days or for when you can lose your job, for when you have, and you have invested your money and you've been working very hard and you have invested, you have all those sorts of fallbacks. why not take a holiday at some point when you know you've really earned your and that or that holiday? I think at some point, because we will seem like we actually don't want people to enjoy their money. There is people that would have earned their worth to go to a holiday. I'm not saying if you have 100 rand, just rush off and have a holiday. You need to have ticked off some boxes for you to enjoy your money.
I think whilst we are there, I want to just go to the comments a bit because that's where that comes in. There was that comment of how can I, say I don't have money when it is there in my wallet, and there was this one, which is one I want us to talk about. One of the challenges is that we grow up without much money, so sometimes it's difficult to discipline yourself. So I think this is where it comes, and it comes in both directions. So there's an issue of us growing without money, or some of us growing without so much money, such that when we get money, we just blow it off. But there's also another angle, which may be that question of saying, why shouldn't I enjoy it? Where people also get money and they don't enjoy the money. Where people get money and the focus is saving. The focus, which is not bad, but you don't live a life. You don't then live to enjoy the money. We are just raising the money so that other people can fight for that money when we go, when we die, so I think, of course, that balance is important, but maybe where it comes from is because when you do an analysis and seeing that most people are being found wanting in the case of overspending, that's where now you just come and say, no, save. Don't spend the money, save, just save. Because you are realizing that, once we start saying that we open that door becomes disastrous. But now,
Can I interrupt, Christian?
Yes, just 30 seconds there. Go ahead.
We have talking about we've been talking about two levels of money here, the overspending part and the saving part. I'm actually not in either. I prefer the investment part, where we need to just show the teacher who earns 13,000 rand and the policeman who earns 15 what they can do with their money while they're at work, for that money to work for them on the side. There's a lot that money can do for you, and I think at one point, saving money without investing it in a portfolio that makes it grow by itself can actually be a bad habit.
And thank you, Paul. You went into the next segment. That is the segment that we are actually going into, which is saving versus investing. The difference between these two. The difference between saving and investing. We can start with you, maybe Gabriel, and we come to Nunisa, and we do a round of that.
Okay, so I think from my basic understanding, saving is just putting money aside, like what Lloyd has been saying. Like you probably save $1 every month for you've got your targets. For instance, you say you want to go for a holiday, you are saving for that purpose, or you are saving to buy a gadget, you're saving to buy a house, or you're just saving just to have to see that you've got money in your account. So there are different savings as well. So you get your just a normal savings account, you put your money in the bank, it doesn't earn anything. It doesn't really earn anything. Then there is the part of investing. You can either invest the money yourself, or this is when now you need to approach the financial advisors. You need to approach Lloyd. Say, this is what I'm earning. You sit with Lloyd, but before you go to Lloyd, you need to know your budget. You need to know your income. You need to know your expenses, the basic expenses that you have as a household. And you need to be true about this. You don't need, because I think most of us, I think that's also one challenge that I had when I approached my financial advisor, was I think like when I was earning X amount, then I went there, and then this financial advisor tells me, okay, you need to start to save. If you want to have X amount in 20 years, you need to start saving about 10 to 15% of your salary every month. Then I was like, well, I don't think I'm left with 15% of my salary every month. How do I then start investing that amount of money? Because from what you were saying, I'm a bit late in starting to invest, because I started working 10 years ago, but I only started investing 3 years ago. So the past 7 years have been cut out. So now to invest to get to a target that I need. Now, with all these compound interest and calculations with these financial advisors, they're telling you now the amount that you need to save now is higher than what you could have started saving. So there are a lot of investments also that are just simple with your banks. But there are also a lot of pitfalls that you suffer in there. So I think with investments, I would urge anyone who wants to get into investment to actually seek financial advice. It's most of the different companies, most of the companies here, they offer free financial advice before you even start anything, because there are a lot of costs also involved. Because if you open with different portfolios, you might end up not really getting anything at the end of the year. Because let's say you're supposed to earn 4% in 1 year, but then you see that your interest or your management fees that you have to give back to those guys, maybe it's like 3.5% or 4%. So it's 4% against 4%, then you're not getting anything. Then you have to diversify your investments as well. There are different portfolios that they will explain to you. You invest in shares, you invest in forex, but through legal means, not through all these scams that we see. So I think one thing when you're starting investment, don't think of tomorrow. Think of 20 years. Think of 10, 20 years. Don't think like, I put my money today. So you're also supposed to be putting money that you know your family doesn't need now. Because I don't see a reason why I will invest 10,000 rands today, but tomorrow my child can't go to school. So I need to invest the one that I can afford, not to get into I think a level that I'm not yet. So you start small and build from there. Like what Lloyd said, it becomes a habit. Yeah.
No, definitely. I love the points that Gabriel has raised. I was actually thinking now about the 10,000 that he was mentioning, that you're saving it for a rainy day and it just rains tomorrow, you know? So you should really apply it to your personal targets that you have for yourself as well. And the importance of educating yourself as well. He's mentioned quite a number of ways in which you can start putting money aside, looking at investments. Investments come with risk, like he mentioned. I mean, if you do have an appetite for risk, they say the greater the reward, the greater the risk, the greater the reward. So educate yourself in terms of what does it mean for me. Things about surrender value, you know. You'll meet with someone like Lloyd and they'll explain all these technical terminology to you, but it's important to go back and do your own homework as well. And also when it comes to saving, I mean, things like stokvels still work, especially as a group. I mean, if you can have 20 individuals, and like Gabriel has mentioned, when you save, yeah, you probably get at most 5% on what you are saving. It's not as great or as high as what you would get when you are investing on shares or internationally, but it's also it's a bit safer because the reward is a bit lower, the return is a bit lower. So looking at, if you have a group of 20 friends and you all put in 1,000 rand every month, that's 20,000 rand that your stokvel amount will increase by every month. Now imagine that at the end of the year, how much that will be. And I mean, as working people, 1,000 rand is sometimes not a lot. You look at your spending habits in terms of entertainment. I'm sure in a month you've already spent more than 1,000 rand on buying certain beverages or going out for lunch or buying a 25 rand coffee every day. You end up reaching that 1,000 rand. So if you look at your lifestyle as well, that can also add to how much disposable income, which is actually money that is left over, that you use on unnecessary items.
Yeah. To just add on to that one, right? The question that was asked is, how often should I sit down with someone? All right. It's like you're asking, how often should I go to the doctor? That's essentially what you're asking. If you're asking how often should I sit with someone regarding my money, it's like you're asking how often should I sit down with a doctor. And most times in our own African culture, we sit down with the doctor when it's too late, when things are very complicated. But even if things are good, every year you're supposed to go for a healthy check, right? And the doctor do all the prongings and the whatnot, and they tell you, hey, watch your sugar, watch your diet. You need to start walking more before it's too late. So it's same thing, same principle also applies to your finances. As Gabriel mentioned, most financial institutions, they give these things to you for free, right? So essentially, what you just gotta do is just walk into your bank and say, hey, how is my money doing? Talk to me. And then they can easily talk to you and give you advice and watch and show you where you need to watch your spending, right? And another thing that Gabriel has mentioned is, as a family, you just need to sit down, take a pen and paper and say, okay, what are our expenses, right? And these expenses are not just pulled from your head. You don't pull them and say, oh, we have that thing, we have that thing. You actually have to take your 3 months worth of bank statements and then just start thinking, okay, we go to the movies 5 times a month, because you won't think of it on the spot. Because right now, if I ask you how much do you spend on food, you're gonna say about 200. But if I look at your statement, you're talking about 200 in groceries, but you're not talking about that $25 that you're spending at Starbucks, right? So you gotta sit down 3 months, do your budget. When you're doing your budget, it comes down to 2 things that you can break. You break at fixed things that you have to do. You have to pay rent. You have to pay your car insurance. You have to pay even if you're owing, let's say, on a car, you have to pay. Those are fixed things that you have to pay, like maybe your phone bill. Those are things that you cannot run away. Then there are other things that we call variables, right? The variables are the going out to eat at Nando's once in a while, right? So when you have those fixed and variables, now you can decide to say, okay, from these, I'm left with X amount. From X amount, how much can I save? Right? Once you know how much you can save from X amount, when you're talking about savings, we don't want you to just save for no reason. Saving and investing, which is the topic, saving and investing are literally the same thing. So let's say I can save $100. Of the $100 that I can save, I can actually partition and say, of the $5 of the $100 that I can save, these $5, I don't want to touch it for the coming 10 years or for the coming 5 years. That's the money that you can put into the stock market. That's the money that you can invest in long term. And sometimes you may have smaller goals, right? If you have smaller goals, like you say, you know what, next year, I think I'm going back home. I'm going back to South Africa. I want to splurge on my family. Where do I get the money from? The valuable things that you can save. Instead of maybe going to Nando's 10 times a month, you can reduce maybe to start by reducing. It's like, you're a drug addict. You don't just say, I'm not going to Nando's at all. That doesn't work, right? You start saying, okay, I was going 10 times, but now I'm going to reduce to 8 times. When 8 times works, I'm going to go to 5 times. That money still is going to your what? Savings account. But everything comes down to discipline.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing is that saving, in other words, saving, when you have a short-term goal that you're working towards, generally you save towards that goal. You put money aside. I'm going to put in $1,000 a month, or 10,000 rand, or 5,000 rand, whichever it is, so that I can raise so much money over this period of time. Specifically, I need this in the short term. Investing is mainly long term, where you are saying, I need to prepare myself for the next 20 years or the next 15 years or for my children's university. And we will maybe Abigail, I'll bring you in there, because I've heard you speak about this before, about, just educational plans and stuff like that, when it comes to preparing for the future of the children, how we do raise money for that and build that up, so you can prepare to come in on that one, Abigail, and the others can contribute as well. I just wanted to go to the comments here. Placid says, Numisa, you don't need to be political about it. Don't say other beverages. You should say it, that buying alcohol.
And it's true. We spend
wine.
a lot on
You
it.
spend a lot. Yeah.
Or wine or whatever. But I must say though, Placid, I must say, for me, especially when I went to Canada, I witnessed this culture of coffee to realize that coffee can be a very serious beverage that people spend so much money on. Like in the morning, you see everyone is walking on the street holding a Tim Hortons mug. I can see Lloyd's head is up, and I'm thinking, Are they being given for free somewhere? And I realized, no, everyone is buying. And people do rounds 3 times a day, 4 times a day, $7 for each cup of coffee. By the end of the day, you spent $30 on cups of coffee. 5 days a week, you've spent $150. For a month, you've spent $600 on coffee, which is about 6,000 rand. And that's a mortgage for a house or for an apartment. And when you look at this thing, so this issue of the beverages and how we spend money and looking closely at how are we spending the money. But I want to also harness the point that you made, Lloyd, which I think is a very important point that needs to be amplified about everyone needs to know their expenses. You need to know how much do I spend a month. And I've realized personal experience is that when I say, okay, what is our expenses? You only mention 50%. But like you said, Lloyd, I want to re-emphasize this. Take the 3 months bank statement. I know FNB and them, you take the 3 months bank statement, you export it to Excel, you do the math, you'll be surprised where the money is going. And you realize that you are spending so much money on things that maybe you don't necessarily need and things that are not of that utmost importance. But we'll come to you, Abigail. You can start on the one of now raising money for the future, for the children, policies and things like that. Abigail?
Okay, so I would say I'm also speaking from my mostly from my personal experience, because I don't want to go into, So I like the is it Gabriel who said that you have to put in money a little bit, or is it Numesa, sorry. Even if you are putting money on your savings plan, whatever amount it is, you can also maybe after a period of time, let's say you put a year on it. You say, I'm putting this X amount on for a year every month. After a year, if you really don't have anything that is pressing for you to take that money and use it, you can actually move that money and put it on a longer term investing. That same money that you would have saved, you can take it and invest it. Or you can open, for those that have kids, you open a plan that you can put money for your kid. If you have more than one, you can still use that same one. And someone once said that a journey of whatever kilometers is started by a step. So if you start with that step, you might see it as very insignificant if you're starting on a monthly basis. But after 3 years, you will see that you would have done a lot. And the other thing that I want to highlight is I know as people, we have that thing of not getting disciplined. So these institutions, they help us with the discipline. Like if you've put a period of time for you that you cannot access the money, that helps with you not just going there and getting the money. There is things that pop up, especially with us Africans. There's things that just pop up that require money. And if you don't have that clause that says you cannot have access to your money within 30 days, or you will be penalized, or that and that, you will easily be tempted and go and take that money and give to that relative who's asking, or who says, oh, my child has fallen sick. I'm not saying we shouldn't be helping our relatives, but black tax is real, guys. It does impact on us. Sometimes you would have exhausted that fund that you had. That okay, some people, they have funds for their relatives that they say, okay, this is the amount that I can spend on my relatives in a certain month. And when it's exhausted, if you don't manage it well, you will go in deep, and you will even go to your credit cards and give out that money. And that is bad. That is debt that is not good to go into, because you have given that. There has to be a line that you draw to say, no matter what happens, I don't have the money. The fact that you have access to the money, or you qualify to get a credit card that's 40,000 rand or and whatever amount it is, does not mean that you should keep digging yourself into that black hole. So I'm not sure if I've really answered your question, but yeah.
I think you have partly done so, and plus it says start with a piggy bank. Of course, I know part of this challenge is some of us we have done these piggy banks, but you always find the coins gone. But as we start to round down, guys, on this planning for the future, I'll give you maybe Gabriel to also speak a bit more on planning for the future, and then we'll do a round with your parting shots of what is the best financial advice you can give. Best financial advice that you can give someone to say, this is what I say you really need to watch out for, or go somewhere, do this or do that. So we can start. Gabriel, you can maybe give a bit more on planning for the future, or if anyone else wants to put something for that, you can put it together with your parting shot.
Okay, cool. Yeah, before I get into planning for the future, I will just answer one question. I think that was on the comments where they were saying, why can't we enjoy our money, something like that. But I think from the budgeting, if you budget correctly, right, you budget there, and then in your budget you must include your entertainment costs. So we're not saying don't entertain yourselves, don't enjoy your money. No. So you actually save. You just have to have a savings after you have done your entertainment, because look, you've gone to work for 30 days. You need to spend time with your family. You need to go out to the movies. You maybe need to plan for a holiday. But it also comes to budgeting and planning. So you plan for a holiday to say in 12 months we want to go to a holiday. So put it in your budget, and then you have that amount. So you actually enjoy yourself. But then you are enjoying yourself knowing that you've got your family is covered because you've got enough money, you've budgeted for it. Right. Okay. So and then going into planning for the future, I think one thing that I will always be grateful to have learned earlier when I got my mortgage or my bond, I think, is putting in an extra amount of money, which really saves on the interest amount that I would pay. And one thing also, because I have a business on the side which I do. So one thing that I did is I've got my mortgage, which is an access bond. So if I start investing money now and I put 1,000 rand for 12 months, that's 12,000, but I get 4%. Then I've got a mortgage bond which I have an interest that I need to pay of 7%. So instead of putting that 12,000 into an investment that gives you 4%, I'd rather put it into the bond, which is reducing by 7%, which is a negative interest, right? So that's one thing that I will always say to anyone who's getting into to get a mortgage: put something extra, even if it's a very, very small amount, but in the long run, because usually these mortgages are like 20 years. Putting like 250 or 500 rands, it will cut your 20 years by, let's say, 5 years, which if you calculate the interest there, saved there, that's a lot. And that's interest that you wouldn't have received from any investment bank that is out there. So for planning for the future, budget and know how to speak to your financial advisors, know what is coming into your bank, know what is going out of your bank. I'm also someone who's very, I don't know what can I say, but I always check my bank. Check your bank statements. There are some banks there that they will charge you things that you don't know. So check your banks and don't fall pitfall to these small debit orders that just go off. So know all of those things. So that's your money. Manage it well and plan when you are starting families, having children. Plan for the future. Plan for their education. Where do you want your kids to go? My kids are 3 years, but I already know where I want them to go to university. I know what it will cost. I now need to start planning on that on raising that money for them to go to school, so that by the time that they're going to school, I know at least I've covered some of it. I think from my side, that's where what I can say for planning for the future.
Thank you, Gabriel. Yep. Lloyd, on your parting shot and your advice.
Shot.
Yeah.
I have two points to make. One is for the adults, and two is for the ones that are still young. But again, everything comes down to the adults. I would say don't save after spending. Let savings be part of your budget, right? So and I like what one speaker said. You can save a certain amount. Once you have saved, you can actually graduate it to another sector, right? So I would say include savings as part of your budget as something as a principle that you have to include in your budget. But parting shot, I would say, if you are to do extra research after this, look up what we call 5 C's of credit. 5 C's of credit, right? And in particular, I want to pay attention to what we call character and what we call capability. So character, basically, we're just looking to see how good are you, how faithful of a person are you. I don't know how many of us have gone to a bank and you're trying to apply for something. They ask you, how long have you been working for your job? Why do they need to know that? How long have you been living at your house? Why do they need to know that, right? And that's character, right? Because you're a person who's stable. Capability means, are you able to maintain something, right? So when you're talking about savings to an adult, we're not talking about you saving 10% of your salary. I'll emphasize, I'm not saying that if you earn $100, save $25. We're saying save, right? A person who saves 10 cents on $100 is better off than a person who has $1 million but does not save. It speaks to your character. It speaks to your capabilities. So regardless of how much you are earning, you need to save because it speaks to your character, right? So it's a character. That's why I said it's a habit. To start off, it's a little bit hard, but it's a habit that you need in your life because no matter how much you earn, character will always come up to say, is this person capable of doing something? I can say, yeah, they're capable of doing something because they've maintained it to save 10 cents on their paycheck. That's character rather than someone who's spending something else. So that's my first point. My second point will be for parents. With young kids, I would say teach them to save, teach them budgeting. This is one of the things that I've seen, when I'm speaking with young people. They are so much into debt. They don't know what's going on. They don't know that they need to pay this and they need to pay that. Advice that I would say, if you have a preteen, even 8 or even a young teen, it's a little bit controversial, but this is something that I'm going to do with my own family. Let's say I have an 11-year-old. I would give them $1,000 at the beginning of the month. I'll give them $1,000. After giving them $1,000, I'm going to charge them rent. I'm going to charge them internet. I'm going to charge them all these other things. If they don't give me back that money, it means they lose those privileges in the course of that month. If they don't pay me money for internet, I just change the password, right? So over time, I'm teaching my kids how to manage money.
Oh,
maybe it's
yeah,
food.
that's good. Yeah.
Maybe it's food. I cannot say I will not give you any food, but those are the things that you're saying. You can say, you know what, I'm going to give you $50. Of the $50, you need to pay your phone bill. If they don't pay their phone bill, well, that's them, right? Again, if they don't pay me, the parents. So I'm saying give them a little bit. Let them give them back to you. Over time, you can actually, in the first few times, it may be uncomfortable, but over time, you're building a habit, you're building a character that your kids will thank you when they're 25, when they're 30. They won't be in the same pitfalls as we are, and they won't know that you have money you have money, but you don't have money. Like how I found out when I started working, because when I worked, spent all the money, then I realized, oh yeah, I need to pay my internet bill after spending it all. But that's something we can help our kids. Those are my 2 main points.
Thank you, Lloyd. Thank you so much for that one. Yeah. Let me say your parting shot and your advice.
I think the topics are all the advices that came from Gabe and Lloyd. They really kind of summed it up for what I wanted to say. But an additional thing that I think is quite important is also that planning for retirement, if you are a working individual, which is something that a lot of people don't think about. My heart gets so sore when I see a 65-year-old still waking up in the morning to go work because there was no plan in place for after 60 when they retired, and within the first 2 years, they finished all their lump sums that they received, because there was a lack of planning or a lack of information. I love what one person indicated in the comments. They said, please, people, you need to read and keep learning. Lifelong learning is something that I really believe and stand by, because it's really helped me as well. Read up little bits here and there. You'll find gems like the 5 C's that Lloyd now has mentioned. I'll never forget it. So yeah, that's my parting shot.
Thank you. Abigail?
Okay, so I would say consistency. If you put your mind to something, be consistent on it. If it's a saving plan, be consistent. That's why you actually need to put it as a plan. Like if you go and sign some sort of a contract, because they give a contract to say, oh, I'm going to be saving this much, and make it a debit order. Because if you have to put it yourself, sometimes you don't have the discipline enough to maintain that 2,000 rand or 100 rand or whatever it is, to put it like that. So you will end up putting less or not putting it in a certain month. So I'd say let's try and be consistent at all times with our saving plans. And then the other thing I wanted to highlight is just to go back a little bit on planning for the future. There is a whole lot of things that are not foreseeable, that we don't know they're going to happen, like loss of a job, accidents, or whatever it is, the unfortunate things that happen in our lives. I'd say this financial literacy has opened also my eyes, that we need to plan for the future, because we don't know what the future holds. Thank you.
That's really great. Guys, I think we cannot rehash this more than enough. There is a lot to be learned about managing money. This is just the tip of an iceberg, but I really want to thank you guys for coming through, for taking your time, and your expertise to share, and come as this is how we build our continent. This is how we build each other. This is how we contribute towards each other's growth, and which is really the purpose and the vision of Baobab, just to say, how best can we bring our knowledge? How best can we, as Africans, based all over wherever we are, how can we come together and make sure that we can bring together our knowledge and grow as a whole and grow each other? This was great. This was fantastic. And guys, like I said, the season 2, this is the beginning of season 2. There is a lot coming. There's a program that is going to be coming, other programs that will be coming. I can at least give you a hint into we have a program on legal matters, African legal matters, that will be posting on Wednesdays. They'll be going up on our social media Wednesdays at 12 p.m. Central African time, where we have legal experts coming to give us legal advice on all things legal. And I can tell that the first episode is talking about the legalities of marriage. What is a marriage? What are the types of marriage contracts? What do you need to do before you decide to say you want to get married? This is not. This is from a legal perspective. What does the law say? What is it that you need to watch out for? And it will go on to talk about different things. Talk about leases. Talk about wills. Talk about different legal matters that one needs to be aware of. So thank you so much. This has been great. And I hope that whatever that you are doing and whatever your endeavors are, that they are productive. And cheers, everyone.